what can we know about the future? Look at these things. Intelligent machines, humans engineering biology, microbes used to make stuff, and lab-cultured meat. 40, 30, God, even 20 years ago, how would we know that those things would be a thing? Well, I hate to bring it to you, but Winston Churchill actually predicted all of these things in his essay, 50 Years Hence. And it wasn't 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or even 50 years ago. It was in 1931, full 86 years ago. Let's look at this list again. Like, he had no way of knowing that data was even possible given the state of science at that time. This is what we're reasoning from first principles, and a little imagination will take you. I will be talking about Churchill again and some of his important conclusions later. Well, this won't come as a shock to anyone in this room, but we're in the middle of a civilizational sea change, a tectonic shift, the fourth industrial revolution. And it's fueled by all of those great things that we're very excited about here. Accelerating innovation, artificial intelligence, and advancements in biotech. But it doesn't show the full picture. This is also true. This list also describes the state of this world. We live in the worst environmental crisis. There's unprecedented inequality. Automation led to peak employment, and we see populism on the rise all around the world. As we see that this system itself might be ready for an upgrade. And that takes us back to capitalism. And yes, there isn't just one capitalism. There are many capitalisms around the globe. We refer to capitalism as something given to us, as something almost predicted by the laws of physics. Well, it's not. It's just a man-made system that we chose for us because we thought it would work. And this is a definition of a social contract. And that social contract has been changing. What do I mean by that? A recent Harvard University study showed that 51% of US students, of US millennials, reject capitalism in the most capitalism country on earth. Well, clearly the critics say they still function pretty well in that system, but there is some notion that it isn't serving the goal, that the social contract has to be changing. We are asking the question, if capitalism is based on a social contract, what is that contract as of 2017? Like, on a systems level, are we optimizing for collective utility? And on an individual business level, what is the purpose of business? And the answer to that question depends who you ask. So for quite some time, the purpose of business has been defined by maximizing shareholder value. In other words, increasing profits. And that idea is not really native to capitalism itself. It is actually quite young. It was promoted by the 1970s op-ed published in the New York Times by Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist. And that op-ed was called "The Social Responsibility of Business is to Increase Its Profits." And I'm going to read a piece of that op-ed to you, because I think you'll be interested to hear it. Those businessmen who claim that business is not concerned merely with profit, but also with promoting desirable social ends, and take seriously its responsibilities for providing employment, eliminating discrimination, avoiding pollution, and whatever else might be the catchwords of the contemporary crop of reformers, those businessmen are unwitting puppets of the intellectual forces that have been undermining the basis of our free society. Well, yeah, but, right? But this is how most people see business now. The sole purpose of business is maximizing shareholder value, and if you're trying to do anything else, you're undermining the the notion of free society. You know, it's not that there's anything wrong with money, but one metric doesn't capture it all. Think about this most obvious example that Nick Hanauer comes up with. There are $200 million companies. One of them is curing diabetes, and the second one is causing diabetes. How did we come to the conclusion that these two are equally valuable for the society? It's like comparing the social reach of Hitler and Gandhi without talking about what they actually did in the world. So that idea that the sole purpose of business is just pumping up those revenue digits, no matter what effect that activity, their business activity has in the world, has been changing and is being replaced by a more inspiring conception of business. It's replaced with this idea that businesses exist not only to generate profits, but do useful things in the world. And I'm going to guide you through some trends to show you that is already happening. So one of the most interesting and exciting trends is the rise of the so-called benefit corporations. So under the current legal system, because the Friedman Doctrine won the day, if you're trying to do anything else other than maximizing shareholder value, you might be sued by your shareholders. So if you're running a company that produces goods in a way that pollutes a local river, as long as you're not breaking any laws, and the management decides, well, we should not be polluting that river, but that temporarily reduces shareholder value, under the Cohen system, they can sue you, and they will likely win. So 6 years ago, 4 states in the United States introduced the so-called benefit corporation. And it's just a corporation like anyone else, like any other corporation, but you can embed your social or environmental mission so that when you're trying to do the right thing, you're not going to be sued by your shareholders. So this graph clearly shows a trend. But what is fueling it? So in 2015, Deloitte did a study with almost 8,000 millennials, and they asked them an open-ended question: what is the purpose of business? And almost half of them, 47%, said that the purpose of business is to improve society or protect the environment. This is a big deal. This is the very question of the why of business. And 87% of the millennials, an overwhelming majority, said that the success of business should be measured in terms of more than just its financial performance. Interestingly, in 29 countries, in none of the 29 countries, over 30% of the millennials said that purely financial performance is enough. At the same time, millennials say that the companies they currently work for are not very well aligned with what they want to do in the world, and they're trying to leave them. And within the people who are planning to stay in their companies for the next few years, they say that the main reason is that the companies they work for represent the values that they share. So these are market forces at work. The best talent wants to work for companies that care. And it's not just the idealist. In 2015 study by Net Impact, it showed that a staggering amount of MBA students, so traditionally the most money-oriented group in the country, would take a significant pay cut to work for a social impact company. So that's 83%. 9 years ago, that was 26. And 5 years before that, 15, 1-5. That's a powerful trend. And market forces are working. In the public companies that have some sort of social or environmental mandate are significantly outperforming their peers. And they also are better at retaining the best people, getting better press. Their customers are more forgiving of mistakes, and they often become evangelists. And capitalists jump into opportunities when they see them. Generation Investment Management, an investment firm started by Al Gore and David Blood, strictly focus on sustainability, social impact, and good governance, significantly outperformed the market with 10 billion under management. So, and just look at the money flowing into for-profit investments with some sort of social mandate, it almost tripled in the last years. And that $8.7 trillion, it's actually already 1 in 5 professionally managed dollars in the United States. It's purely profit-looking money. So even if you're a cynical, money-grabbing capitalist, 22% of a bucket of $40 trillion in an upward-looking trend is not really something you can afford to ignore. The best part, there is currently a $30 trillion wealth transfer coming from baby boomers to millennials who are going to further that trend. Why? Because millennials are tired of political institutions, and we don't really trust our religious institutions either. But we believe in science, technology, and we think the business is a good way of changing the world. But it's not just the young who want more from capitalism. Profits are not our primary goal, says the icon. We should be applying market forces and business know-how to solve the world's problem, says Bill Gates. And the founder of Whole Foods calls for businesses to operate with higher purpose beyond profit. So these great business minds recognize that this 1970s version of capitalism is buggy, and they call for an upgrade. They have different names for it, creative, conscious, or sustainable capitalism, but at the core of those ideas is an idea of a more inclusive, more rational capitalism that's not just focused on narrowly defined shareholder value, but a very broadly defined stakeholder value. And all humans, other living beings, and this planet as a whole are stakeholders of capitalism. So remember Churchill and how he saw things that were practically impossible to see in 1931? In the same essay, he talked about the social responsibility of leaders and technologists to design the world we want to live in. He talked about the people who have the power to think about what they're going to do with that power. And he called for a principled approach to innovation. So I spend my days supporting entrepreneurs who do just that. We even named our firm after that Churchill's essay. I'm a founder and a partner at a venture fund called 50 Years, based here in San Francisco. We back technology entrepreneurs who are building massive businesses by solving the world's biggest problems. And I'm not talking about reducing enterprise churn by 3%, or pairing you with the perfect pair of shoes. I'm talking about the biggest problems, many of them defined in United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Ending the climate crisis, feeding the world, educating everyone, ending disease. This is a very small sample of our current portfolio. These are sexy companies everybody wants to work for. These are companies that you look at what they're doing and you want them to succeed, right? Because when they succeed, the world gets better for everyone. What's exciting about working in Silicon Valley and kind of being in this world of tech is that today's startups will be the biggest businesses of tomorrow. And also, technology companies have the best shot at solving some of those biggest problems because of what they're doing, and potentially eliminating entire categories of problems. So I hope I did a good job at convincing you that the future of capitalism is not just profit. It's profit and purpose. And that we're moving away from this narrow, outdated notion of maximizing shareholder value to a broader mandate of maximizing stakeholder value. And I could end here, but I'm actually interested in what's coming next. And I want to look 50 years out. And I want to leave you with some important questions. So remember the characteristics of this fourth industrial revolution that we're currently experiencing. I think nobody in this room has any doubt that one day we will develop super intelligent agents. Agents smarter than any and all humans, systems that can learn and execute and make decisions in the speed of light. And I could end here, but I'm actually interested in what's coming next. And I want to look 50 years out. So remember the characteristics of this fourth industrial revolution that we're currently experiencing. I think nobody in this room has any doubt that one day we will develop super intelligent agents. Agents smarter than any and all humans, systems that can learn and execute One of the leading scientists in the field of artificial intelligence asks probably one of the most important questions that humanity will ever ask. What if we succeed? What happens when the economy is no longer run by humans? What happens when all business decisions are made by neural nets? Where will be the responsible leaders, and what can we do then? Can we design that system so it works for us? Can we encode into digital corporations that our lives and experiences matter? Can we translate that we dislike pain, but we like crying in the movies sometimes? Can we explain that we like private property, but we also like our mountains and our oceans and our skies to be owned by no one in particular, so we all get to use them? How do we teach our values and our ethics to those systems and make sure they listen? How do we prevent autonomous organizations from just optimizing for some silly number next to a dollar sign? So as our economy is getting more and more abstract, we're starting to recognize that these questions and the externalities of business activity really matter. I gotta tell you, I'm not an optimist here. I think the far future of capitalism is volatile. But if we all get to work now, we get lucky, we might land on an economic system that actually works for us. I call it autonomous capitalism. And yes, it's an optimistic scenario. When most economic value is created by non-humans and the scale of their activity is unimaginable, we will really have to make sure that human values and our ethics are at the core of each and every business decision that's made. And for that, we will need to design powerful frameworks to translate our values and our ethics to systems that have no notion of what we want. And I also think if and when we get there, we'll probably figure out some sort of principled rational redistribution that actually embodies our sense of fairness. So when you think of this scenario, I know it's far out in the future, but suddenly the notion of mainstreaming this broader idea of stakeholder-based capitalism seems a little bit more urgent. Let's get to work. Thank you.